Today we're going to add on to our Vesper theory skills and talk about how to determine the polarity of a molecule. I know in grade 11 we would draw bond dipole arrows and slight charges on our Lewis dot diagrams, and we would use the line test and the arrow test to figure out if a molecule was polar or nonpolar. If we're going to take the time to figure out the 3D Vesper shape of a molecule, it's actually much easier and faster to look at symmetry. And then we don't have to look up electronegativity difference and deal with looking at a 2D Lewis dot diagram and trying to project that into 3D space. The definition of a polar compound is your overall structure has a charge imbalance. So you have unequal electrons somewhere over your whole entire structure, not just individually in between two atoms in a polar bond. The definition of a nonpolar molecule is you have equal distribution of charges or electrons on your structure. Now, just because a molecule has polar bonds in it doesn't mean necessarily that it's a polar compound. A polar compound, also known as a dipole, has to have at least one polar bond in it in order to get a charge imbalance. But the polar bonds need to be arranged so that they don't counteract each other. And nonpolar compounds, they could have all nonpolar covalent bonds in them, or polar bonds that cancel each other out. So I mentioned using symmetry is the easiest and fastest way to figure out if your compound is polar or nonpolar. Remember, polar compounds have an overall charge imbalance, which means they're going to have an asymmetrical Vesper shape, or they could have a symmetrical shape, but one of the atoms hanging off the arms is different, and that will introduce a different electronegativity pull and make your electrons unevenly distributed. In order to call something a nonpolar compound, they have to both have a symmetrical Vesper shape, plus all of the atoms hanging off of the arms need to be identical. So the first criteria you're going to look at is, do I have a symmetrical or an asymmetrical Vesper shape? This is pretty straightforward to tell because each of the 5 electron arrangements that you get are symmetrical in 3 dimensions by definition. So if you have a linear molecule, you're going to have 180 degrees here and 180 degrees here. Hey, that's balanced. And this is because it's set up so that all the electron groups, because they're negative, are going to repel each other in 3D space, so they're as far apart from each other as possible. So all the repulsive forces are balanced, which means each of the 5 arrangements is symmetrical already. Now, most people have issues with this one, the trigonal planar arrangement. Like, Mr. Denny, how can this be symmetrical? The top doesn't look like the bottom. You got to remember we're now looking at shapes in 3D space. So we're not looking for a single axis of symmetry where we put a mirror and the one side looks like the reflection. What we have to do is look, where are my negative electron groups in 3D space? And for me, the easiest way to look at this is to check out the bond angles again. Each of these groups are separated by 120 degrees. That's equal distribution, which is the definition of nonpolar. The issue with this diagram is we're kind of looking at the trigonal planar arrangement from a top view, not a side view like the plane of the screen. So if I tilted this diagram so that it popped out of the screen and going into the screen, you would have no negative groups above the plane of the screen, no negative groups below the plane of the screen, and we've got equal distribution 120 degrees apart. For the tetrahedral, every single angle in here is 109 degrees. So again, that's equal distribution. If we're looking at the trigonal bipyramid, right, it would be the side view of this trigonal planar arrangement. So I have 120 degrees going all the way around, equal distribution, just like my trigonal planar up here, but then I have an electron group at the top and an electron group underneath that trigonal planar shape. For the octahedral, there's a bunch of 90s, there's a bunch of 180s. Everything is equal distant away from each other. Again, that's to minimize the negative repulsive forces of each electron group, and they're going to move to areas where the net repulsive force is 0, which is then going to be balanced. Now, as soon as you start messing with these base electron arrangements, that's how you introduce polarity to your molecule. If you have a lone pair on any of these arrangements, then that's going to unbalance your electron distribution because lone pairs take up more room. It's going to squish the other angles, change the other angles, and you don't have an atom at the end of that lone pair, and that automatically makes each of these arrangements asymmetrical when you have one lone pair on them. For example, if we look at this trigonal bipyramid, if we add a lone pair on here, we'll say we take this stick off there, you still do have a 120 degree bond angle between these two electron groups, but you're going to end up with a new bond angle here of like 240 and a little bit bigger because the lone pair takes up more room and squishes those two other groups together. And then you don't have a 240 on the other side to balance, so now you don't have equally distributed charges. If you add a second lone pair onto arrangement, it can fix your symmetry problem and rebalance or remake it a symmetrical Vesper shape, or it could make the situation worse. It depends on which arrangement you're adding that second lone pair onto. So for example, if we're looking at this tetrahedral arrangement up here, when you add one lone pair on, you get that trigonal pyramidal shape, which is asymmetrical because this from this group to this group would be greater than 109 degrees. If I add a second lone pair on here, it doesn't fix the symmetry problem. I still have this bent V-shaped, which is not going to be balanced. But if I'm looking at this octahedral arrangement, one lone pair is going to make it asymmetrical. But when I go to add the second lone pair, they are always opposite each other so that they get more room, and then that's going to fix my symmetry problem. All my angles that are left on this shape are going to be 90 degrees to each other, and I don't have an atom above, I don't have an atom below, so that's equally balanced on the axes. And then on the equator, I have equal distribution, everything's 90 degrees, so that would make me nonpolar again. The second criteria you need to check is, are the atoms hanging off as arms the same or are they different? And this is a change from what we were doing in grade 11. There's this diagram on page 239 of your textbook that gives you a couple of possibilities and then confirms whether the molecule is going to be polar or nonpolar. So in grade 11, we use this notation. If we had a polar bond, we would draw a bond dipole arrow. This is telling me that atom X pulls harder on the pair of electrons than A, and so the electrons get displaced towards the X's. And we drew these in grade 11 as just showing direction. But what you can do is actually draw them as vector arrows, and the harder that element pulls, the longer the arrow you can draw. And so if you end up with symmetrical Vesper shapes, like linear Vesper shapes, always symmetrical, I have a 180 degree bond angle here, a 180 degree bond angle here. So my electron groups are spread out in 3D space in a balanced way. What you need to do is then go and ask yourself, hey, are the atoms on the arms the same? If both of them are x's pulling the same amount out left and right, then your electrons will be equally distributed over your structure. Hey, that's the definition of a nonpolar compound. So I have a symmetrical Vesper shape, linear, but the atoms on the arms are the same. They're both x's. But if I keep that linear shape, but I change one of those x's to a y, and now y is more electronegative because it's pulling the electron away from A, but this is a longer arrow, y pulls the electrons away harder than the x does. And now I know directionally we are balanced. The left arrow would cancel out the right arrow. But now that we're showing the bond arrows with magnitude and direction, I would have a little arrow left over when I add these two vectors together, and then I would have a resultant displacement to the right, which means my electrons aren't equally balanced. And all it takes is just changing one of the elements to something else that has a slightly different electronegativity pole, and you can make any compound polar. So if you're going to call something nonpolar, you have to make sure it meets these two criteria. You need a symmetrical Vesper shape, and all the atoms on the arms need to be identical. So here's another example on the page here. Trigonoplanar. Hey, that's a symmetrical Vesper shape because all my bond angles are going to be 120 degrees. That's equal distribution. And then in order to call it nonpolar, I have to check, are all the atoms hanging off the arms the same? If they are, they have the same electronegativity pull, they're going to pull in a balanced fashion, then it's going to be a nonpolar compound. But if I just change one of the elements to something different, it will have a slightly different electronegativity pull and unbalance my charges, even though I still have this trigonoplanar symmetrical Vesper shape. So let's go back and look at the examples we did on this note yesterday and identify, are we going to have polar or nonpolar molecules here? So I did correct my diagrams on this video compared to yesterday's. So for the NO3 it is a resonance structure, and so that's why I took that double bond and I smeared it around. If I've got a double bond and two singles, then that gives me 3 electron groups, trigonoplanar arrangement, 120 bond angle. I have no lone pairs on this atom in the middle, the nitrogen, so my shape is the same as the arrangement. It doesn't get altered. Now, because trigonoplanar is a symmetrical shape in 3 dimensions, again, each of these bond angles is identical with 120 degrees. That's equal distribution. Then I'm going to have a symmetrical Vesper shape. Now to check the atoms on the arms, each of them are oxygens, and so they would pull at the same electronegativity. So all the electrons are actually being pulled to the outside ends of this molecule, and I'm going to end up with a positive center on the nitrogen there. Now you might be thinking, well, Mr. Denny, I've got a double bond here and 2 singles. It's the resonance structure that actually saves this and makes it symmetrical. If this wasn't a resonance and it was really a double bond here and 2 single bonds, then the double bond would have a slightly different electronegativity pull than the singles, and that would unbalance the compound. But because this double bond is actually smeared or shared over the whole entire structure, then that creates an equal charge distribution. So our NO3 is going to be classified as being a nonpolar compound. Now, don't just throw that answer down there, because you do actually have a 50-50 shot if you don't know how to answer the question. So I'm always looking for a justification. Your reason, what do you see? that gets your nonpolar or your polar answer in order to get full marks. So NO3 1- is going to be a nonpolar compound because you have a symmetrical shape and the atoms on the arm are the same. If we have a look at the Ni3 example, I have 4 electron groups, which is the 3 single bonds and the lone pair. So that gives me the tetrahedral arrangement 109 bond angle. But when I take one of those sticks away for the lone pair, I end up with this trigonal pyramidal shape. And because there's no atom up here, my trigonal pyramidal shape is not going to be balanced. You can look at it as it's pointing at the top of the pyramid and it's flat at the bottom. Or you can look and see that, hey, the angle from this electron group over to this electron group is not the same because you're missing this one in the middle. It's going to be greater than that 109 ideal bond angle. So it's going to be an asymmetrical shape, which makes this a polar compound. Again, tell me what kind of compound it is, and then give me your justification, or what do you see. And here's the correct diagram for the BrCl4 1-. You've got 36 electrons, so that gives me 6 electron groups in the 4 single bonds and the 2 lone pairs. So I have that octahedral arrangement. I'm going to have bond angles of 90 and 180, and if I take 2 of them away, that gives me that square pyramidal shape. Now this is this example where if you add 1 lone pair, it makes your shape asymmetrical, but if you add a second, it counteracts that and makes you a symmetrical shape again, right? I have nothing above, I've got nothing below, so that's balanced. And then in this plane of my screen, I have 4 groups and they're each 90 degrees apart from each other. That's equally distributed. That means it's going to be a symmetrical shape. Before I call it a nonpolar compound, though, go back and look at, hey, what are the atoms on the arms? Are they identical or are they different? Here I got 4 chlorines, so then it would be a nonpolar compound. Because I have that symmetrical square pyramidal shape. And I have the same arms. If one of these was a fluorine instead of a chlorine, that would automatically unbalance my electron distribution and make this compound polar. It would still have a symmetrical Vesper shape, but that different arm creates that polarity. So you did this molecular shape worksheet yesterday. What I want you to try out is this polarity worksheet 1 today. So same kind of question as number 1. You're first going to have to draw the proper Lewis dot diagram with the 5-step method. Identify the electron arrangement, the molecular shape, and the bond angles. But on today's polarity worksheet, you're also going to state if the molecule is polar or nonpolar and explain your reasoning. Remember, the answers to these are posted on the classroom, so make sure you do a couple and then double check that you're getting them right, so you're following the correct process.